Right, here's the guys inserting the head. Just insert that head there now. Look, it might all look like fun and games here on the mold, guys, but you know, as I started to put in my modules, this week's going to cover the continuing dilemma I have with the foam core creating issues with fitting my modules. So, welcome back to the mold, and let's get into it. Yeah, g'day guys, welcome back. Let's take a bit of a step back a few months to when I originally gel coated and fabricated these modules. In fact, I've done around about half of the modules that I have for the boat at this point, but just to remind you of what was involved in making those. Now, there's a few suggestions came through to me that I may want to sort of fabricate my own modules or change, in fact, cut them in half, cut and shunt them and change them, but I've stuck with the idea of using the ones that were originally designed and made for this particular craft, just to get consistency and end up with a really professional finish. This is our starboard ensuite at the front, so upside down and back to front. This part here goes into the bow of the boat, so you can imagine the bow of the boat up in here, and the washing machine at the front if Janet decides we need one. I think she probably will. We're going to live in bikinis and speedos.
Yuck, stop it.
Now, I am very fortunate to have all of the plans, photos and schedules of pretty much the entire outfitting of this boat. Now, photographs like this, I'm clinging on to about 15 images that are really giving me a lot of inspiration as I move forward. Funnily enough, that's pretty much the only thing I'm clinging on to, but back to the real life now. Inserting the head. Just insert that head there now.
You know
it. Just I beg your pardon, Trace. Righto, okay. Thanks guys, hang on, I'll get in there.
No more dragging tyres up the road.
Just dragging your head around.
Let's just drag heads around.
Righto, ready?
Yep.
No. Where's the bar? Where's the sink?
On my right foot.
Where's your right foot?
On my right.
Oh, don't drop it.
I got it.
Can you lower it?
Yeah.
Oh, engage your head.
Got it.
Alright, lower it nice and slate there. Just let me see where the sink is. Yeah, it's come forward a little bit. Here we go. Hang on, it's caught me.
Can we go up?
Nah, it's just a bit of rough glass. Just let it sit there. Oh! Oh!
The window's right there.
There's a window.
Right there.
Yeah, so see, if I grind this down, if this sits flush on here, see I've got to flatten, I've got to tidy this whole hatch up here,
Yeah.
and if that sits against the 20mm foam that I'll put here,
Oh yeah, that's new, is it? Or is that
yeah, I've done about 8 layers on that, but I've got to grind, all that off and really tidy it up. I've just been rushing it there.
Oh, see that?
What?
Just release.
Oh, it's already out.
Yeah, something you just release.
No, I think I've got to lift it.
See, it's just doing that, I think.
So I've got about probably about 50mm. I've got to shave this foam down in here to fit this head in. I've got it at the right
distance from the bow, but it's got to go down about 50 mil. So I'm going to be probably grinding out a lot of that foam, which is a real bugger of a job, but it's got to be done. So the structure of the actual module will counteract the damage I'm going to do to the foam, but it'll all be good. Okay, if you can just, I'll lift it.
Yeah, I'll just sort of slide it towards me as it goes up.
Oh. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, look, there's 10 mil of rope there.
Yeah, right.
That's it. Just keep going. That's probably right there. Yeah.
So I had a great deal of input from people as to what sort of tools I should be using doing this process. The removal of this foam, as you can see on the video here, is just chunks of very expensive foam being just thrown away at this stage. I found that using an oscillating multi-tool with a chisel blade on it was by far the best way. I was able to sort of slice and scrape away without affecting the underlying substrate. Had I affected that, I would have to go back to laminating again. And around this time, AMSA and our engineer, Oceanic, determined that we needed to remove the foam entirely rather than leave a small amount there, and then replace that with an engineered laminate, which is reasonably substantial, particularly in the bow. The bow of this particular cat will be copping a lot of load and stresses on it that the stern simply would never cope with, i.e. slamming and the forces at play there are quite significant. So each region that I had to remove the foam had to have its own individual laminate. And yeah, the one thing that I found during this process was very good was very loud music. It tended to take the edge off the conditions. It took me hours and hours and hours to remove this stuff, and then you can see as I moved on to the engine bays, it got even more challenging. Done some pretty shitty jobs in my time, but this one takes the cake. This is a shit job. So after what I'd consider to be way too many hours frigging around cutting this foam out, I ended up with a very satisfactory fit. It took some time to notch out the areas where the corners of the sink and everything were fitted, but ultimately it made a very pleasing result where the thing fitted down exactly where it needed to be. I keep holding on to these photographs that I've got of the completed boat because, you know, when I see the end result, it really is starting to make things worthwhile. I'm only hoping that my boat can turn out anything like the last production boat that came out of the factory. So I thought I'd just do a little bit more. The final cleanup required the flat disc sander just to remove all of the bedding compound that had remained. And here I am back in the engine bay compartment. You can see that I've got the engine bay strapped up behind me. That white powder is fiberglass, and yeah, a very good way to avoid the itch I find is to base myself in talcum powder at the beginning of the day, and that stops a lot of the itch. And then I always wash myself off with cold water at the end of the day before I have a hot shower. Right, so I've just spent a day sanding, grinding and removing all the excess foam, which I'll show you here in this little video I've done, a little montage of grinding. It was like a bloody snowstorm here about an hour ago, but what I've been able to do is get this engine bay positioned and ready to glass in. So the nice thing about that is that I'm going to get a good solid fit, but I've then got to revert back to the Australian Survey solid glass around that engine bay. So as you can see down in here, I've actually removed the foam away from here and sanded it right back to glass again. And what that's allowed me to do is in fact get a good glassing point for the bulkhead that's going to sit in here. There's a bulkhead that runs right through this area that butts up against this engine bay. So is going to increase the laminate of this by another 300 CSM, another 1200, then another 300, another 1200, another 300 and another 1200. So that's quite a significant amount of glass. That's about probably 5 mil of glass, but that is also a lot of resin. Now that is why we use foam like this. That's a pretty substantial weight saving that by having foam. So wherever I've got these modules fitting up against, I've got to go back to solid glass. They wouldn't allow me to grind back the foam to 1 centimetre because it'd fail in a shear test. So that's the reality. I just got to live with it. Yeah, I think my catch cry on my channel is that there's blood, sweat, swearing and tears. There was plenty of that in this episode. Look, this week I've had a number of people subscribe, and I'm pretty stoked that you guys are finding this interesting. The other thing that's happened too is I've been contacted by a number of blokes that are they're currently in the middle of builds or at the end and moving on, and it's really brilliant to talk to people that and compare notes with people that are really in the same I'll put it in inverted commas predicament. Taking on something like this is a challenge. It's certainly testing my resolve. But as I mentioned, those production photos that I have of the actual boat in existence is keeping me motivated. And there's no lack of motivation here. I'm the sort of guy that will dig deep until there's nothing left, and I've still got a hell of a lot left. So if you like the videos, subscribe and certainly give them a like. It helps me with getting the channel out there and let people see what I'm up to here on the mould. But yeah, we'll see you next time and catch you later.